Ren from Hallowed Be Thy Game here, and today we're talking about my favorite battle systems in turn-based RPGs. Let's check it out. Number 5, Trails of Cold Steel. I'm often asked, how is the Trails of Cold Steel series? And to that I will say, just play it. Emma Best Girl. This combat system is so good, it makes me thirst, and I need a towel. Cold Steel does have traditionally turn-based combat, but it is set in a 3D arena. Each character has 2 resources to manage for combat, CP and arts, or magic essentially. The CP or craft points gauge will be restored when dealing normal physical attacks, and the arts gauge will be restored by resting or using items. Your arts can range from damaging spells, healing, or even support spells that will greatly change the tide of battle. CP and magic abilities can utilize the field of combat to try and use your targeting reticule to ensure that your abilities hit the highest number of enemies. This may be a single target craft, or perhaps even an art that will damage in a straight line, or perhaps an AoE that is a big enough circle to hit all the enemies in the field of battle. This system, as you may have guessed it, is also available to the enemies as well. This creates a playground of absurd turn-based RPG fun, as you may at times have to use your turn to move your characters out of an AoE that will decimate your team. Or you could use this as a prime opportunity to lean fully into breaking your opponent and canceling their cast. That's right, enemies have a health bar and a separate meter to track their break status. When an enemy breaks, they immediately have all their cast canceled and their turn is set way back in the order. So in essence, this allows you to use your skill to take on opposition that may decimate your team if they are ever given the opportunity. This is where the elegance and cultured status of the Trails formula shines the brightest. There are so many ways to build your team in this game, and that's a theme you're going to see a lot on today's list. I love choice, and I love options for combat. Look, if you're going to be committing potentially hundreds and hundreds of hours of gameplay, then you better be having a really freaking fun time with the gameplay. Trails of Cold Steel brings both story and engaging combat in spades. I never expected a AA studio to devise and execute such a superb and refined combat system as in Trails of Cold Steel 2. Now I have literally explained just the most basic of combat mechanics for this game, but that does not even take into account the turn buffs you can receive. Stellar franchise and a titan of turn-based mechanics. Number 4, Xenogears. Last year, I had the absolute pleasure of finally playing this legendary RPG. Xenogears is one of the most unique RPGs I have ever played, as it utilizes a classic turn-based formula, but instead of a typical menu-based combat, it showcases a glorious button entry system. Now, I'll be the first to admit that I'm not sure if this is the first game to ever utilize this system, but it's definitely the first one that I've ever played. It is an incredible genre mashup between a fighter and a turn-based RPG battle system. It's so satisfying unlocking and discovering new devastating combat inputs to unleash on your foes. Also, this system is used for juicy mech battles that take place in it. Every hit feels so weighty and satisfying. To unlock more abilities, you need to be willing to experiment with different combos and plans of attack. You have 3 options to start a combo: the triangle or a light attack, square or a medium attack, or the X button, which is a heavy attack. Each of these buttons will start a different chain that, as you progress through the story, will give you more options for button entry. At the beginning, you may only have the option to hit a light attack 3 times or a heavy attack once. By the end of the game, you'll be able to do a large chain that will unleash destructive eye candy on your opponent. Now, you can just look up what combos to work on to unlock, but at the base of the system is an addictive form of combat that I would love to see return in modern games today. I'm telling you, nothing is more satisfying than finally slamming an annoying foe that has been giving your team some trouble. Xenogears is unique in every sense of the word, and I'm so hopeful that one day this beautiful combat system can make a return in a remastered version. Number 3. Chrono Trigger and the ATB system. It's time we hit yet another legend in the gaming industry, and that is Chrono Trigger. Even more precisely, the ATB system. Chrono Trigger set the standard that, if I'm being completely honest, I'm just shocked didn't flood the RPG market in the following years. The active time battle system takes the basic mechanics of turn-based gaming and makes it into a real active time, active turn-based system. There is a timer and you cannot simply wait your turn. The enemy will strike and you need to think on your feet, and when it is your turn, you execute your plan of attack. When I first played it, this was such a revolutionary system. However, looking back, I think where Chrono Trigger shines brighter than so many others is where it added further complexity with dual tech attacks. This is quite easily the coolest and most iconic thing about Chrono Trigger. The X Strike. Once you see it, you know it's Chrono Trigger. There is an abundance of dual techs in this game just waiting to be discovered and utilized. I mean, seeing Chrono do a fire whirlwind strike for the first time was one of the most satisfying moments in gaming for me. The cast is wonderful, we all know this. The music is the soundtrack of nostalgia, but it cannot be understated how satisfying and fulfilling the ATB system was. Chrono Trigger was a kind of curse to me in some ways, as it spoiled me with no random encounters. I will always prefer being able to see and choose when I will engage in combat. I love you, Chrono Trigger. Number 2. Radiant Historia. Radiant Historia is one of my all-time favorite games. It is often overlooked and doesn't get the love that it deserves. A major part of this is because of the incredible combat system. Combat takes place on a grid. Characters will unlock abilities that will enable you to move enemies on the grid. The goal of combat is to input commands to your team and try to strategically place all of the enemies together on the same tile of the grid. As you chain these abilities together, the damage multiplier for all enemies in that chain will grow exponentially. You can always view the turn order of combat, but what is so fascinating here is that you can delay and switch your turn with an enemy and actually give them the opportunity to strike you first. Why would you do that? Well, if you can line up your entire party's turn, then you can create a devastating and much more effective chain of damage. The depth of strategy is awe-inspiring. I cannot tell you how incredibly satisfying this is to me. In some odd way, it reminds me of the nigh pristine combat of Fire Emblem Three Houses. I would have put it on the list here today, but I felt that it deserves to be part of its own list with tactical turn-based RPGs. With that said, Radiant Historia is an overlooked classic that has a masterful combat system that never got old to me throughout the entire run of the game. It hits all the right synapses in my brain, similar to when you have that perfect fit in Tetris. Whereas instead of fitting the perfect L shape into the slot, you group a horde of enemies together, only to end it with a devastating bolt of lightning. God is so good. Number 1. The press turn battle system of Persona and SNT. Surprised? Yeah, I didn't think so. Look, the press turn battle system is categorically the best battle system in turn-based gaming. I've said it before, and now I'll explain why. It rewards strategic gameplay with instant gratification, yet since enemies abide by the same rules, it always keeps you on your toes as to make sure you do not fall prey to the same benefits you enjoy. Almost all enemies have strengths and weaknesses to certain spells or physical abilities. If you can find those abilities they are weak to and exploit them, you are rewarded with an extra turn. That is the fundamental core of the press turn battle system. Whether it is a roster of demons or a group of Persona users, the press turn battle system is consistently satisfying, and it is a perfect toolkit to tackle some of the toughest entries in turn-based gaming. The combat system excels so well in my mind because it is simple in concept, but offers a springboard to explore the depths of the greatest turn-based RPGs ever designed. Well, there you have it. There's my 5 favorite turn-based RPG battle systems. Such a fun list to make, but definitely hard to narrow it down to just 5. So, tell me down in the comments, what's your favorite turn-based battle system? Can't wait to check it out if I haven't already. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe and hit that notification bell so we can keep hanging out in the future. And until then, I'll see you guys next time.